Well, good afternoon. Good afternoon and welcome. Welcome to another of our webinar Wednesdays, number 34, since we started doing these weekly back on March 18th. And on managing your small business through the pandemic webinars. Good afternoon. I'm Kelly Bearden. I'm the director of the CSU Bakersfield Small Business Development Center, or SBDC. And it's great to have everybody. It's got a lot to go over today, so let's get rolling. First and foremost, as you're probably aware of, we have numerous sponsors that make this possible. From Kern County Mid-State Development, the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development. We also have CSUB's School of Business and Public Administration. We're powered by SBA and the Blue Tech Valley program. As you know, we're part of America's SBDCs, over 1,000 centers across the country, and providing one-on-one consulting and also training events and other services. We represent out of our office in downtown Bakersfield, all of Kern, Inyo, and Mono counties. Our Central California SBDC region covers the entire central swath of the state of California, from the Pacific Ocean to the state of Nevada, all the way down to the southern tip of Kern County up to the northern point of Mono County, right there at Topaz Lake. So that's our region. In our region, we do have 6 service centers, and ours is, of course, in downtown Bakersfield. And if you need an SBDC, you'll find them also in Fresno County at Clovis Community College, at UC Merced in Merced, in Modesto, also in Salinas, and in San Luis Obispo. So look us up. If you have an issue, a problem, a question, do kind of look for that. And we have another webinar tomorrow that we're doing as part of the Central California region. And that webinar is going to be on reopening and rebuilding trust. It's with retail expert Bob Phibbs, the retail doctor, who's really kind of the champion of brick and mortar installations. So join that one tomorrow. Retail should be good. And let's get rolling. So, November 4th. What's up today? Well, you only have 50 days of shopping until Christmas. I know, we're not even to Veterans Day, and now you're down to 50 shopping days till Christmas. I think a few of you might have heard we had an election yesterday, and we're going to have a poll question regarding it, and we'll have a little bit of discussion. You'll actually hear me talk a little bit on the political side of things, on how it affects our businesses as far as stimulus and PPP. I know you know I'm very apolitical, and but at least now with making some assumptions on the direction of what we've heard from yesterday, maybe we can get a better idea of what's going on stimulus and PPP wise. Our local update on state mandated reopening, the tier system, is being updated just about 4 minutes ago officially. They usually do that on Tuesday afternoon. Today, Wednesday, because of Election Day. So it's going to be a surprise when we open up that window and see what's going on here in Kern. As we have talked about the last few weeks, a lot of our communities are kind of experiencing an uptick, and that uptick, we do not want to move to a more restrictive tiers. We're going to talk about the B-Cares program for City of Bakersfield, and about they've now had changes with their grant program that is up to $20,000 if you have 25 employees or fewer. We'll talk about a few of the things that we've had surface here at the SBDC as far as idle fraud, a little bit of some issues with PP&P. Got a great guest today on tourism and the hospitality segments. We'll leave her plenty of time and introduce her in a little bit. And of course, as always, your questions and a poll. So again, put your questions in the Q&A box today. We'll be hitting the questions at the very end. So Q&A box for questions, any other comments you might have for the chat particular box. So polls today. Okay, well, let's start with this poll. And that seems like a poll that we had last week, but I'm going to launch it anyway. My bank is currently accepting or has accepted my PPP forgiveness application. So I'm going to launch that poll. And if your bank, because remember how we've been talking about this, is your bank has actually is the key, and they're the key that's driving the PPP forgiveness process. So again, be checking with your bank. Many of them still aren't open. We're hoping that now we're past November 4th, that some things happen and make that a little easier for you. But yes, no, or you're not sure if your bank is currently open or is accepting the PPP. So there you go. Give you another couple of moments in order to get in. We have right now about 54% of you that have voted. Your bank is accepting the PPP. Very simple. Let's end the poll at about close to 60% and share that result with you. And right now, most of you say no. And I know this is an area that you want to get done and get in, but no, 44%, yes, 33%, and 22% of you aren't sure. And the best thing to do is to continue checking with your bank because they're going to be the ones that are accepting the PPP application form and then submitting it to the SBA. Okay, so let's and also if you know, the one thing also is, if you recall when we hit the timeline briefly today, that maybe those of you that have submitted, the 9 of you that have submitted or so, if any of you have got approval from the SBA yet, because remember the bank approves and it goes to the SBA, please share that information in the chat room. Just say, yes, mine's in or whatever, because I'm still looking for somebody to be approved through SBA on that. Okay. So second question is going to be, let's base something on last night's elections. Now, you know, I'm not going to get political. I don't do that. But last night's election will have, as all elections do, consequences, and it will affect some of the things that we have been waiting on for months for various reasons to that. So based on last night's election, I initially expect or hope to see the following: a full stimulus package, a skinny stimulus package, a second PPP for troubled sectors, full PPP forgiveness for 150, more unemployment insurance or state and local funding. Now, I believe I opened that up to where you could have voted for multiple, but it's possible I didn't, since there are probably some other outcomes that are possible. So choose the one that you expect to see out of last night's first, and we'll go from there. So full stimulus, a skinny stimulus, a second PPP, full forgiveness for 150,000 and under, unemployment and state and local government funding. So got about 60% of you in right now. So let's give you another couple of moments and let's share this. And I discuss this a little bit in a few minutes. So it's great to see your idea and your input. We're going to end the poll and share the results. And look at that, full forgiveness, 31% based on the election last night. Full forgiveness, 31%, definitely a possibility. Second PPP, 23%. Full stimulus, 20%. Skinny stimulus, 17%. And also more funding for state and local governments. Okay, great. Thanks for the input. Well, we got one more poll question. Let's have something that's a little bit more on the fun side of things. Farm Aid. Many of you have probably heard of the Farm Aid concert that was started in 1985 with Neil Young, Willie Nelson, John Mellencamp, who were the founders. Raised over $60 million since then. One of the founders, Neil Young, last performed in Bakersfield in 2018. This band Crazy Horse at the fantastic Fox Theater in downtown Bakersfield. When was his first appearance in Bakersfield? 2005, 1999, 92, 80, 1980, or 1973? So vote them up. I think Rock and Rick out there would be proud of this question. Neil Young last performed in Bakersfield in 2018, 2 shows at the Fabulous Fox. But when did he first appear? Also, sidebar on that while you're voting. He's got a video I found out earlier this week that's raising money for Farm Aid for 2020, since it's virtual like all other things, it seems like these days. So you can go and find it. It's got chicken clucking in the background and all kinds of weird stuff, but it's entertaining. So free, and you can donate to Farm Aid if you'd like. So 62% of you have voted. Let's end the poll and share the results with you. And when did Neil Young first appear in Bakersfield? Well, it was at the Bakersfield Civic Auditorium, which before probably 91 or 2, was at the convention center that turned into the Rabobank and now the Mechanics downtown. So the answer is 1973. First appearance in downtown Bakersfield for Neil Young.
That was a good year, because that's the year I graduated from high school. I knew this answer.
1973?
Yes,
did you know that answer, Lani?
I knew this answer.
Oh,
but I couldn't.
I wished I was at that show.
I know.
Okay, so we're going to stop sharing, and that's it for the polls. Thanks for participating. We do have one free walk-up COVID testing that I have found this week. Last week, we had several to share, including the 2 at CSUB on campus. And we had, I heard today from a meeting from the president of CSUB herself, Lynette Selesny, that we had over 500 people that actually were tested during the walk-up testing on campus last week. And then there were other testing sites. But this one is in Wasco. Do check back. There are the Latino task force with their COVID task force. They do sometimes add other events for the weekend, and with elections and everything, they might have other things planned. But that's the one that we have right now. So I am going to move on to some of our numbers that we are looking at. And we do look at a lot of the numbers each week, and try to pull some of these up now. And of course, not being very cooperative, but when is it? So I'm going to get my Google opened and hopefully get it opened and try to get that open for you. Let's go to the stop share all the way back. And come on. There we go. And let's get into the state numbers first and foremost. And hopefully these are being updated right now. Give it a quick little update here and see if we can get it updated. Get the current numbers that haven't even seen. Curious to see. As of November 4th. So these are the current tiers. Off the bat, we see still Kern County, and check Kern County's numbers first right here, still in the red tier. And substantial. And new numbers, 6.0 for test, adjusted up to 6.4. The positivity rate is 4.2, and the equity quartile is 5.4. So, actually that's a good report for us in Kern County. A little higher on the new COVID test at 6.0, but keeps us in the substantial. It doesn't move us any closer to getting to the moderate or orange tier, but it does actually, still the adjustment. We always seem to adjust high, no matter, and that's based on not hitting the full state median on the number of tests, even though I told you there were 500 at the university last week. Positivity rate is staying about where it was. So, that's actually not a bad number for us, and will keep us in substantial for another couple of weeks. So let's look at some things that are happening in Mono County. Didn't think I'd ever say that. You're going to see in Mono County that there's a lot of going on in Mono County, and the rate's gone up to 21.5. It's same as the adjusted, and the positive rate is 8.5. And this is because in Mono County there was an outbreak at the Mountain Warfare Marine Base up north of Bridgeport, and apparently they had over 60 people that tested positive, and it's really impacted the numbers. Doesn't seem to have infected the rest of the community or impacted as much, since it is kind of isolated to the base. But the base numbers do count, so you do have numbers that count in there. So numbers to watch next week moving forward, but it's still in the orange or moderate. Other county here is also Inyo County, which is also in the moderate. So just kind of, we've been noticing some things go higher. Let's check out Fresno County real quick. And Fresno, their numbers have rebounded back down. That's good for them. So 6.3 with a 5.1 positivity rate keeps you solidly in that quartile that is substantial. And so that's good. Close that one for you. Go up a little farther. Let's go to Stanislaus, one of our northern, 7.6. Last week, I believe they were at 6.9. So they're over the 7.6, and the adjusted rate is also a little bit higher. And another rate testing like this will throw Stanislaus back in the widespread. So not good news in the northern part of the San Joaquin Valley. Another county that we seem to have pretty good participation here. Let's check San Luis Obispo County. And the number is, of course, in the substantial as well, in the red, and 6.1 with a low positivity rate of 1.9. And your equity quartile is very low. So that's a pretty good number, especially since the adjusted tier rate goes down to 4.1 and suggests a lot of testing going on there. So those numbers are actually really, really good. If you could have got that adjusted under 4 in San Luis Obispo, this would have been the first week to count toward actually getting to the moderate or orange zone. But it is definitely a trend in the right direction. And so that's what's happening more or less in our area in California. And let's see what's going on elsewhere. So looking at our numbers here in Kern County from the Kern County Public Health Services Department, we'll see that we are still kind of about the same place, trending higher. Fortunately, the death toll has slowed way down, and only one new death recently, which is good. And other numbers that suggest that the fine work being done by the health department is paying off and keeping us at least in the substantial at this time. Okay, so just looking lastly, one thing that we've kind of looked at the last few weeks are the national numbers and how they were trending. And our national map here, and I don't really see a lot of change here. You do see the red here pop up for Mono County and what happened with the base there. And you see a little bit of even darker spot there, extremely dark right there, which is going to be Alpine County. And for those of you that know your state of California, Alpine County is an extraordinarily rural mountain county. I believe the population is like 1,100 people for the entire county. And it could have also been affected by that base, because that base is going to be up toward the northern part of that red, and it could have also affected Alpine County. So one other thing is we never talk about the global aspects of the global spread that's going on, but since we're covering everything else, the global spread, you've seen or heard probably that Europe is going through some real difficult times, and that they are closing large segments of their economies in a number of different countries. Europe is significantly being impacted, but we're also seeing a lot of countries such as India and Brazil with even higher rates than the U.S. as far as total number impacted. That compares way differently from Europe compared to Eastern Asia, where you have a country such as Taiwan who has not had a positive test in something like 200 days. So A lot of the Eastern Asian countries are coming back and are really getting up to speed, whereas a lot of the rest of the world is struggling. And so that's that. So locally, let's talk about a big program shift in the CARES Act funding for the city of Bakersfield. Now, you'll recall that there are grants available up to 25 full-time equivalents, and that amount would be 20,000. The big change this week was that before, if you had applied for the Kern Recovers program or the PPP program, you could not apply if your business was located in the city of Bakersfield. So that was kind of to give preference to those that hadn't received any monies yet, and they have now opened it up, and they are now accepting grant applications for those that have between 1 and 25 full-time equivalents. And you see the different rates there between $5,000 and $20,000. So if you've been holding off or you were waiting until you were able to apply, now's the time to do so. And that is, again, through the city of Bakersfield. I believe the city of Wasco's grant program is still open. So they have their COVID relief grant program, and all this money came down through the CARES Act, the initial stimulus package back from around the end of March, I believe March 27th. So there's still funding there, and they have money to get out, and there's various issues with and not issues and problems, but requirements for the city of Wasco, where you can receive up to a $5,000 grant if you're in the city of Wasco. I believe the Kern Recovers program, their PPE program, which has been distributing and has been very valuable in distributing personal protection equipment to businesses throughout Kern County, using their employer training resources and other entities, other nonprofits to get that out. So there's kind of a roadmap and shows you what has been distributed. 1,927 businesses across 69 different industries. Good differentiation. I can't say it today. Differentiating. Well, it's across Kern County, believe me, all across. And so the Kern Recovers program is still rolling along. And that's kind of our internet update for today. So a couple of things before we get to our guest speaker. The timeline on forgiveness, there's really not much out now on what has happened. You know, my 2 cents that I promised on what happened last night with the election is, I think for the stimulus and for a lot of things that are happening along PPP and other business programs, I think the main issue that I think I was looking at and had been looking at for a while was control of the Senate. And I think that with that last night, there's a very good chance that the Republicans are going to maintain control of the Senate. So I think we were waiting for a couple of months for politics to play run their course and to play it out. And with the White House being close, the real key I thought though was in the Senate, and the Republicans retain the Senate, then there was always going to be going back to the nonpartisan aspect of actual deciding on what was going to happen between both parties. So again, just my observation, and it does appear that the Republicans are going to keep the Senate either by 51-48. But it could, still maybe too early. But that's what I've been watching, because when that happens is what really was holding up and what created a skinny stimulus was the fact that there were certain senators, Republican senators, that didn't want more stimulus, that they thought that the national debt was going too high. And now that's going to be, now that there has not been one party that was going to control all three, the 2 congressional branches and the executive branch, it's going to have to come down to negotiations. And hopefully this is going to happen much sooner rather than later. I could be a little demanding at times, but I'd kind of like something for next week's webinar, to be honest with you. So let's see if you guys out there can get that done. But if the Senate stays with the Republicans, I see it to be more negotiated and be more of a smaller package, maybe initially, rather than the bigger package. But that's just my observation of following the PPP, the EIDL, the stimulus programs over the last 34 weeks. So our timeline for forgiveness, we've showed this one to you before, but just remember you have 10 months from the time your covered period ends to apply, and 24 weeks to use the funds. And then it could take up to 5 months to get it out of the lender and also SBA. But 10 months window from when the covered period ends to apply. So a lot of this might be shaking along with the actual 150,000 and under based on elections over now. We now know where the power is going to lie. At least we'll soon know. We'll soon hopefully know. Please let us know soon. And then we can get on with getting some much needed relief for our small businesses. Quickly on the EIDL front, we had a couple of businesses over time that have actually received this. And what this is this is the EIDL bill. It's not a bill. This is not a bill. What it is it gives you information on your particular loan. Many of you maybe have had this or received this recently or even before. And what it is it gives you information such as your loan amount up here in the right-hand corner, $45,100. And it tells you, one thing it tells you that's really telling in this is that your interest begins to accrue from your loan date. So you have a deferral. The due date of this isn't due for a year afterwards, 8/11/2021. So August 11th, 21 on this one. But the interest does start accruing from that time on. And on a loan like this size, at basically 4%, you're looking at about $1,800 of interest being applied to the first year. So keep that in mind when you go to, you go to pay this off. We also have been looking at some information. Now, what we found is we found a few people that have actually did not apply for an EIDL. And the money was actually, the loan was made in their business name, and that's how they found out with that last statement. So now, if you have an EIDL and you have the proceeds, you're fine. And here's a couple of informations. We'll throw this out in the links this week that we send out, and it's just for the fraud hotline for disaster loans and also to report fraud for the PPP program. But starting to see a little of that now, and businesses that were some way, shape, or form not applying for an EIDL loan, and their business name was, and the funds were diverted elsewhere somehow, somewhere. Okay, last but not least, the Fed Main Street Lending Program. We haven't talked much about this. There have been a couple of changes. The minimum's down to $100,000. This was a program that had allocated CARES funding of $600 billion, and there's only been about $2 or $3 billion spent out of it. So when you start talking about a skinny stimulus, a ton of this money could come out through this program, leftover PPP money, leftover EIDL money, just in the small business programs that go back to them. Don't really see a lot of lenders getting too excited about this, even though the lower amount, the doubling of the fees to encourage more participation from lenders. But best case is there's other funding tools, other borrowing that can be done outside of this, and it hasn't been a real popular program. And that brings us to our guest speaker today. And it's my pleasure to introduce Lani Lott. Lani is with L Consulting, and she's there with offices in both Phoenix, Arizona, and Grass Valley, California. She's going to talk about a lot of things today, and I'm going to just let her fill in the blanks. But
Great.
Every time I see Lani, I go back to the time I met Lani back in the 90s, and she worked for this ever-endearing gentleman, Kent Burns. And if you ever heard one of his seminars, and we lost Kent a couple years ago, fantastic guy, phenomenal small business guy from the retail side of things, from the merchandising, you name it. Still use some of the things I learned from him when I talk to businesses about merchandising and other stuff, but really kind of goes back. And I see Lani and I think of Kent, who we lost a couple of years ago. So Lani,
hand it over to me.
I miss him like you do, but
Oh,
it is
yeah.
On to you. Thank you, Lani, for being
Okay.
here.
Thank you, Kelly, for all that cheery news in the beginning there. I haven't really walked through California's levels other than, helping some clients that I work with. But anyways, thank you everyone for joining. I feel honored to be able to be your guest speaker today. I'm going to talk very quickly because I have a little bit of information to share, show you some websites that you might be interested in looking at to track trends in the visitor driven market, as well as Visit California's dashboard that they have. I love that Kelly had all of that information about how COVID is impacting each of the counties. That's very interesting. And of course, California is such a large state. So today I'm going to talk about the business-driven market and the pandemic, some trends, a couple things about pivoting, and then some resources for you. So I wanted to start, here I am again. Thank you for that great introduction, Kelly. And I have been working in small business development centers for close to 20 years, providing advising for most of the state of California. Right now, I'm up on contract with Shasta County and Trinity County. Trinity County, little tiny county way up there in Northern California, in upstate as they call it now. And I love what I do. And I do specialize in working with retail, hospitality, seasonal, and tourism sectors when I am consulting. The other part of my practice is I work a lot in downtowns across the Southwest, most of the time with municipalities, downtown business associations, Main Street programs, and I love what I do, and I'm passionate about small business. Probably learned that from Kent, right, Kelly? So anyways, when we talk about the visitor-driven market, I just always start my presentations with just a refresher, the definition. So what is a visitor? And I love this definition. It is a person who visits as for reasons of friendship, business, duty, travel, or the like. Many of our communities, when we talk about visitors, we often think about tourists or people coming from out of the state into the state, or people that we don't know. But actually, many of our rural communities, even in our larger urban settings, many of the visitors that come to your county or your community are actually your friends and family, right? I'm getting ready to travel out and visit my mother and my sister that live in Visalia. So I will be a visitor to Visalia, but I'm coming for family reasons. The importance of the visitor-driven market to your community and your business. Well, first of all, if your primary target market, if you're a lodging, hospitality, tourist-based business, then your primary target market is the tourist or the visitor. And we often think that they are the hospitality sector are the only ones that really benefit from people coming to your community to visit, whether they're international visitors back in the day, and they will come back again, national visitors, those coming from other states, or even regional and in-state visitors. But to be frank about it, in most of our communities, in your more historic downtown districts, your central business districts, your cluster of businesses that are centered around a destination, and even those in a destination facilities, such as gathered around like up in a ski area where you may have, I'm thinking of Squaw Valley Village. I don't know what Mammoth has. The Squaw Valley Village, if you take that gondola all the way up to the top, then there's all of those franchises and chains that center around the ski area, and actually are small businesses that depend greatly upon the visitor market. But even in our downtowns, many of our businesses, their secondary customer base or consumer are our visitors, the ones that are visiting, and then they stroll the streets, they go into the retail store, they go to a restaurant, or they stop in an attraction, or they even attend a community event. So many for our small businesses, your secondary customer base is really the visitor, whether it's in the prime seasons or the shoulder seasons, and often the secondary customer base is who's really driving your profit. And of course, we know the importance of the visitor market that contributes to your local, regional, and state economy through the transient occupancy tax, the TOT tax that's levied on your lodgers, sales tax that generates jobs, And it does drive back taxes and income into your local and county municipalities. And those are really key because those are what support many of your services and your quality of life factors. And then visitors usually enjoy your cultural events. They are often enthralled with your community's character and help put your place, your community on the map. And actually, many visitors end up being full-time residents. They love the area. They either retire or they have a job change. For example, up in Nevada County, where Grass Valley is located, my family moved up there in the 70s. My dad took, we moved from LA. My dad took a early retirement at the age of 40, oh, how I wish, and moved us all up to this little tiny community that was 5,000 population. I was like, okay, thank you, parents. But I really did say thank you, parents, in the long term. And so I'm going to come back to this because I want to get through my presentation, and I know we're kind of a little bit hard on time. We want to get to those questions that are sitting in the question and answers. So the visitor-driven market is very important for a lot of different reasons, for your hospitality and tourist sector, as well as any of your smaller businesses that really feed off that visitor market. So when Kelly asked me to do some trends, and I have some notes here, so I may be looking down at them because I want to make sure I don't miss anything. You Google travel and visitor trends 2021, and of course, a lot pop up. So you can go down the rabbit hole as I do when I'm doing these presentations and try to dig through all of the Google sites and the sites that have all these different trends. So when I put together this, I wanted to remind folks that when you're looking at trends, always think about who is producing the trends. Like my sources are down here. I have Trafalgar, I think is how you say it, the travel site, Airbnb, Destination Analysis, and then Vertraso. And of course, these are places that their trends are very specific to their industry. And in your industry, you may be having your national association or your franchise association may be doing some data gathering, some market research on looking at what are some of the trends. So I kind of pulled down a variety of them to kind of just give you a snapshot of what's happening, how they're seeing trends for 2021 travel and visitor trends. Now, there probably going to be nothing here that you haven't already experienced firsthand because we've been living through this pandemic for almost 8 months. And, some of this, because it's been 8 months and you've been pivoting and now you're in recovery and you're being resilient, all of those key words, and you're seeing these trends. So the first trend is really about staying local. We're seeing much more of our local base supporting businesses that maybe in the past they didn't. And this is primarily, in my opinion, because we're working remotely. I am, pretty much stuck over here in Arizona. I've been to my California office once. They opened up Shasta County, and then I had to reorganize again because they shut it down because of the cases going up. So we're working remotely more. We have a lot of our children, if you have small children or children, in high school even, they're home learning remotely. So you're at home with them. We're still not comfortable with traveling, especially, if we're in one of those compromised demographics. And then we may even be in between jobs. So we are staying local. We are supporting local because we're there and because we believe in our local businesses. We really didn't understand their importance until they were sheltered in place and could not be open, and we couldn't go to our favorite coffee shop or go to our favorite watering hole or go to our favorite restaurant or theater. So we really are kind of understanding their localness. Multifamily vacation and travel pods. I found this one really interesting because they said in the market research that families are, forming these kind of family pods, and they're actually replacing multi-generational travel. They're seeing some vacation pods, travel pods coming up with 2 families or more have the same philosophy on social distancing coming together. And then in addition, they're also seeing a kind of a spike in private tours. So as family time becomes even more precious, they're seeing more private tours being offered as a chance to travel exclusively with just friends and family. So that's kind of a different, interesting trend. And I've seen this on Facebook because, you know, we see everything on Facebook. That's what we know is happening out there in the world. And I am seeing these clusters of friends and family kind of vacationing, going to a place or talking about, you know, celebrating as a family. Drivable markets and non-team outdoor recreation will be the first to recover. Road tripping and outdoor experiences. So multinational resources are predicting that travelers are more likely to first visit places that they can drive to in a few hours. Those who are originally planned and had been to, you know, cancel a long haul trip are likely to change that travel to a regional drivable trip, and then leverage this opportunity to make sure your marketing efforts reflect the hyper local. And then the non-outdoor recreation, especially if you are anywhere in our rural communities that are up in the mountain communities, you understand this. We're seeing a really big spike in outdoor activities, camping, kayaking, fishing, just going to the outdoors. Here in Arizona, and I live in Maricopa County, I actually live in Phoenix. Yes, I do live in Phoenix. You know, our state parks are nowhere near Maricopa County. We have to drive at least 2 hours to a state park. And what happened with the pandemic is that all of a sudden our state parks are being overran with a lot of people that were hiking and getting out there and just getting out and exercising outside because that's what we could do. So it's natural that that this is going to be something that is, you know, going to be growing. And I did a webinar in San Luis Obispo, or SLO, as you call it. I call it San Luis Obispo, or SLO. And there was a mountain sports, local mountain sports business there, been there for years. The young employee who had worked there for a number of years had just purchased it in January. So he was a guest speaker and sharing his story. And one of the pivots that he's doing now, they're very, you know, they saw a really big spike in sleeping bags and lanterns and tents. And so then when we asked him about preparing for the winter, because he also does ski rentals, he said he had invested in a new type of online app that folks can actually rent their skis prior to coming to the facility, and they'd be ready for them. Because, you know, if you've ever rented skis, you know it's a long line and everybody's sitting on the bench trying to get the ski boots on their kids or their own foot, and then how tall are the skis. So really trying to social distance through all of that madness, they made this investment, and so they're very excited about that. Now they're just keeping their fingers crossed for Mother Nature and snow, right? People are wanting clear, transparent, flexible cancellation and return policies. Travelers are spending less money on their trips, largely due, not that there isn't any wonderful places to spend your money, but unavailability of the amenities they normally spend on. So the research said that with services like 5-star restaurants and spas closed and many attractions as well, travelers are spending far less than normal on their trips. I thought that was a very interesting trend. And then when we were talking about destination advertising, you want to look at those visitors, the leisure travel visitors that were surveyed, and there were thousands of them surveyed. They appreciate seeing masks because it gives leisure travels that locals and visitors are like will take safety seriously. So when you're doing your messaging, you may want to consider showing, you know, how your restaurant or your hotel or your retail business is adhering to the safety practices in your images, in your messaging. Leisure travel still want to know what is absolutely unique about a destination. So in-depth interviews and focus group, travelers consistently shared they want to know what is unique about your destination. What can I do there that I can't do anywhere else? Travelers brought up wanting to see unique facts and facets of the destination, particularly around dining and cuisine. And then advertising works. When asked about receiving digital ads, travelers shared positive reactions. Not only do they enjoy seeing the digital ads, but such ads inspire ideas for future travel, oftentimes for places that they may not have otherwise considered. And then I will show you this website in a minute. So looking ahead and continuing to pivot in 2021, I gleaned all of the webinars that I've done in 34 weeks, what I see in terms of pivoting for businesses, primarily if you're depending upon the visitor-driven market consumer, either as your primary or your secondary. Cleanliness and of course, safety comes up as number one. Use your assets. Look at all the assets that you have at your fingertips within your business and look at how you can leverage them and incorporate them as you pivot for 2021. Eco-friendly, authentic local experiences. That is what our drivable market is looking for. That is what our, even if they're driving, staying overnight, like I'm going to be staying overnight when I come out to Visalia, I'm going to be staying overnight for the first time ever in Death Valley, because finally we can travel through Death Valley when it's not 125 degrees coming from Arizona to Visalia. So I am really going to be looking for some of those local experiences when I'm traveling in Death Valley, whatever that might look like. Smaller group activities, very key for your restaurants, especially if you were used to larger, servicing larger groups. Now they're much smaller group activities. A lot of our lodging, a lot of our assets that are around event venues are looking at mini wedding, even elope weddings where you invite just 10 folks to come and then they have all the services for you. Activities perceived as safe, leveraging every opportunity, digital, absolutely over paper. And I tell all of my lodging clients, all of the folks that are ever on a webinar about hospitality sectors is get reservations digitally. I was so excited when I stayed in Lone Pine in July when I visited my mother that I could actually make my reservation online. I did not have to do the old-fashioned call or email, we'll get back to you. You have to get digital. Daycations, escape for the day, track the facts and stay informed. And I think, what Kelly was sharing was fabulous. I'm going to show you a little bit more how to dive deeper into the visitor and tourism market, what Visit California is offering in terms of staying informed. Keep your customers up to date, stay connected with the broader conversation. Plug into your destination marketing organizations. Leverage your visitors, your CVBs, your convention visitor bureaus, your chambers, your downtown associations, your fellow businesses, your sectors, even your industry. See how you can leverage that, plug into them, track what they're saying about what's going on, what the trends are, so you can stay ahead and continue to pivot. And then as hard as it can be, because we're all stressed out, we're working our buns off to just keep one foot in front of the other, maintain a human touch. Personalize your messaging. Make sure that you're getting back to your customer base and responding to them. So the last thing, and I really wanted to share this because I just find this so intriguing, that, Visit California is California's travel commission. And they have a fabulous dashboard. They have a fabulous website, and then they have this dashboard. And on the dashboard, or in the website, they have industry guidance for reopening in terms of all of the visitor sectors, talking points for you, relief programs, industry marketing and toolkits, and then the research. So I am going to minimize my PowerPoint, and I am going to plop up here the Visit California. Going to move this thing. How am I doing on time there, Kelly? Let me look. Oh, I'm just whipping through here. This is good. So this is Visit California's portal. On the PowerPoints, which, and Kelly can then, copy them and put them in the chat or send you out the PDF of the PowerPoint. I have the link so you can go right to them. This is what it is, industry.visitcalifornia.com. And these are the different places where you can go and learn more about the US travel, high-level travel industry guidelines, guidelines for hotelers, restaurateurs, even best practices for retail centers. They have resources for the California tourism industry. But what I really want to show you is they're weekly. They're updating it weekly, much like what Kelly shared with you in terms from the COVID-19 Gov site, where they're showing you how the counties are performing. Visit California is tracking it the similar way, just a little bit different kind of approach. So I'm going to show you that PDF. And Kelly, you let me know if you can't see anything when I'm up here and just talking away and people are going, what the heck is she sharing? So this is what the dashboard looks like. You just get this as a PDF, comes out. This is the October 22nd report. And then you can just go through it and look at it. And it has comes from all of these third-party data point sets. So they're really researching it. They're looking at these areas, public health indicators, which I'm not going to go through because we just had all of that. The consumer sentiment. So they're tracking US and California mindset towards resuming activities, and then also the mindset toward travel. They're looking at California snapshot, past week and future planned activities. There's a page there that I just think is every business needs to look at. So it kind of tells you where the consumer sentiment is, and California as a snapshot. Then, of course, if you're in dependent upon the air and lodging bookings, there's indicators there. And then the economic indicators, how we're performing with TOT taxes, sales tax, how individuals feel how important is the tourist market to the economy, to your county. So the first page I want to go to is page 15. So here's your table of contents. So the executive summary is right here. And so this is telling you where your current status is in the recovery phase. And then you can read through these weekly indicators. And they give you a snapshot that, for example, down here in consumer indicators, 81% of residents were travel ready, either actively traveling, intending to travel, or open to the idea of travel. This compares to 76% nationally. So that's a plus. That's something positive. And then the mindset towards resuming activities remained flat last week in both California and nationally. So that's just kind of telling you the summary. I'm going to go right here and I'm going to type in page 15. So the travel readiness indicator, this is kind of where it shows you in these circles what they mean. And then you go into the color codes, right? So if you're a data geek like I am, and I think Kelly is too, you can spend hours on this and you can interpret it, read it, figure it out. But this is kind of showing that active travelers, their behavior. So it's just kind of giving you, this is California, this is US, this is how they're coming up with that kind of executive summary that they put in there. So I'm going to go to page 23. And this is the one, activities done in the last week. So this gives you a really great kind of a graph of, yes, outdoor, taking a walk, hiking, or bike riding, right? Outdoor takeout for a restaurant is still the activity that California residents said they participated. 49% of them, how they're tracking it through Visit California Smart Insights, said this is what they did last week. Go shopping to a retail shop, dine in a restaurant. If you're in a county and the restaurant is open, they're dining in, visiting a park, visiting a beach. And then we come all the way down to visiting a spa, or renting a car. So you can kind of take a snapshot there. And then before I run out of time, I want to go to page 38. and show you. So this is the California weekly travel spending. And so the yellow line, I do believe is the, might have had to go to another page before that. I think that is the yellow line is US, and yeah, US and California is the blue. So, oops, sorry, going the wrong way. So as you can see, weekly spending, and this is from February 29th, when we were rocking and rolling, and then bam, then we have down in the shelter in place, and then slowly opening, slowly. And then of course, this was Labor Day weekend. And then right here, we're seeing that, we're still above California weekly travel spending is still above the national, as it should be, because we are one of the, largest economies in the state of the United States and even in the world. So this gives you kind of that kind of a graph. So Kelly, I think I'm out of time. I did want to show you want to go ahead and answer some of the questions that are in the question box?
Yeah, let me throw you a couple questions and get back in the question box.
Oof.
Doesn't want to open right now with all the questions in there, but we jotted some down earlier that I noted were pretty good.
I do have
you
three. Three in the
Are you
question box.
seeing? Oh, go ahead. Why don't you read the questions then?
Well, they're really for you about the PP, those employers.
Okay, well, let's do this. You read your three, and then I'll read the ones that I pulled out of chat or wherever.
Okay, great. So I see does, from Marlene, does employers that pay monthly and semi-monthly get to choose the 24-week forgiveness?
Anybody can choose 24 weeks. If you get over a period of 14 days, you have to go with 24 weeks from the date you started. You're not given an option for an alternative covered period, which really didn't become that big of an issue after it was 24 weeks. But anybody can go 24 weeks, and that's one of the great options that you have.
Okay. Next question from John. Can you provide any details regarding forms 3509 and 3510 and why they are not available on SBA's website?
I don't know 35.9 and 3910. I just know, or 3810. I just know 3508, the easy form, 3508, which is the longer version of the PPP forgiveness. But I will look into those form numbers, and then also 3508S. So what were those forms again, Lani?
3509 and 3510.
I'll look into those, and I'll try to see what they contain, and we can maybe look into those next week.
Okay, and then an attendee wanted to apply for the BC Cares program, but we are just off Rosedale Highway, and that puts us in the county, not city. Anything for the county at this time?
Nothing from the county. The county recovers program did go about $30 million, and there has been some talk about maybe something later on. So we'll just kind of keep our ear to the ground and listen for something there. But it's kind of tough. I've talked to a few people that they're in the county, and right across the street is virtually a city-owned business or a city business, city resident business where they can't apply for BCares. Okay, and your turn.
Turn.
Are you seeing any work from home people traveling to destinations to work from a resort or another destination?
Me. Yes, that is a trend. Airbnb went into it quite deeply about that is a trend. Working remotely gives us the ability, if we can balance, if we're traveling with a family, if we can balance the family in the room, if it looks professional, if they have good Wi-Fi. When I travel to Visalia to visit my mother, I stay in a hotel and always have to have good Wi-Fi in order to communicate and do our webinars through Zoom or meet with our clients. So we are seeing some of that. In the very beginning, some hotels were actually renting out their rooms for working remotely, so you could go up into the room. It was and you didn't stay in the room, you could just use the desk and the quiet space and the Wi-Fi for like $20 for the day, so you could actually get away from your home if you would actually, because you had children there, or your spouse was there too. So that was a trend we saw in the beginning when hotels had to shut down completely. So yeah, that is a really good question, and I would watch that. I know Airbnb is tracking that. My daughter in Grass Valley has a Airbnb right next to her home, and she actually saw lots of people, even beyond the pandemic, when all the fires were going on, they were actually coming down and renting the place for a week while the fires, because they got evacuated, right? Or their house was being, they couldn't go back. So it doesn't matter if it's just the pandemic, but we often see this bump in when there's disasters too.
Just a follow up to that, is there any specific way that maybe works better than others to promoting to that group, those individuals that are working from home?
I would do LinkedIn. That's where primarily your professionals that are working from home, or your chamber. If you're a member of the chamber, often, many of the folks are still the corporations. They still are remote. It's a tough market because, they just don't click the box in the demographics census that I work remotely. But I would say that, if you look at any of your businesses that have a number of employees, that if you have a way to communicate to them, whether you're pushing it out even in your Facebook advertising or your social media advertising, where you have the ability to really develop a preference audience and go down into those demographics and perhaps look at ones that are, in that type of profession that you probably think they're probably working from home, and then design your messaging around it.
Great.
Right.
Question. Are there any travel bans now?
Can you repeat that? You were breaking up just a little bit.
Are there any travel bargains now? So I like it from the consumer's point of view
Oh.
rather than the business person.
Yeah,
So
I'm sure there's lots
for those
of
of us that
bargains.
want to get out and travel,
There are
want to
lots of
get away.
bargains out there. I mean, yeah. So I think by chance, I took a cruise, first one ever, in January 25th through February 1st to the Caribbean with my crazy cousins, 4 crazy cousins and their spouses. So it was a family vacation before it was even a trend. And, I think it was the last cruise that we could take before they stopped all the cruises. And I'm still getting emails from the cruise. There's lots of deals out there. You just have to want to take either understand what the cancellation policies are in case they get closed down, or how comfortable you are. I'm traveling via the plane already. I'm comfortable with that. Southwest, up until November 30th, they are not renting out their middle seats. After November 30th, they're going to start opening that up. If you're uncomfortable with that, then you can, choose another flight that is less impactful. So, I think there's lots of deals out there. You just got to kind of see, I think, going to Death Valley and staying in the Death Valley Inn, that's a 5-star. We're staying there for $79 a night. So, right now there's not a lot of people that are flooding the hotels. So there's a lot.
Well, if you're going to work in a plug for Inyo County, where Death Valley is, I will add to this and just say that November, historically, doing a lot of business travel to Mono County and Mammoth Lakes area, Bishop and Inyo County. November is usually a very, very inexpensive month because you're out of the summer season and you're before you get into the winter season. So there's always some great deals there too. So that's something I would throw.
Yeah, I think just, search around, see what the hotels are not at 100% occupancy at all. So there's lots of sliding deals, lots of packages. Now, not all their amenities may be available, like the spas, like out here in resort land. in Phoenix, we're just coming into our high season, November, December, January, and February. And it's still very willy-nilly whether the hotels are going to be able to depend upon the spring training. And if they don't, the stay vacations are going to continue. We always get killer deals in June and July because that's our shoulder season. That's where nobody is supposedly in Arizona. So they give us these killer deals. You can't sit out by the pool because you'd be frying to death, but you can stay in the resort very cheaply. So it'll be interesting. I think that, because we don't know what the pandemic has gone on so long, that I think hotelers are nervous about any kind of discounts or deep deals yet until they really know what the market's going to do in their season. And so I would just watch for it and make your reservations early, because all of them have cancellations up the day before. I've noticed that they've changed them all.
Well, Lonnie, thank you so much. That's some great information. And we're actually going to have Lonnie back for a special webinar on Tuesday. I believe it's going to be in early December with the Downtown Bakersfield Association, and do something specifically for our downtown here in Bakersfield. So look forward to having you back then, Lonnie. Thank you for joining us. And tomorrow we do have a second webinar this week also with Retail Dr. Bob Phipps, and covering a lot of things, and a great chance for you to get your questions asked and answered. So thank you again, Lonnie. Thanks for joining us. And for Lonnie, I'm Kelly Bearden. We'll be back. I'll be back tomorrow with that one, but we'll be back next Wednesday for number 35. So have a great week, everybody. And we'll see you then. Bye-bye now.